Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, really, I think it goes back to I was kind of a late, I would say later than some other people in regards to like college and that kind of stuff. I graduated from Sac State in 2009 with a bachelor's in psychology. But at this day and age, no one really, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you do. And back, even back then, I think it even means less today with a degree as the technology and things kind of evolve. But back, get a degree shows you can actually stick to something for 4 years and then finish it up or whatnot. After that, during this time, I did some like door to door sales, AT&T. I feel like if you can grind out residential door to door sales and have some success, that's that that's a true testament to that might be something that you want to look into as a talent in a career. I didn't look at it like that at that exact point. I pursued psychology a little bit and realized kind of real quickly that it's really gratifying, but gratitude doesn't pay bills. It doesn't do what I wanted to do. And I wasn't passionate enough to pursue a doctorate or a master's or any of that stuff. So I basically got into a career sales gig in 2010, and it was more around logistics and software and things of that nature that I did really well in. And loved the competition, loved the amount of money you can make, and love the flexibility. And that's kind of like where I've kind of blossomed and just did really well. And so that kind of segues, I think, nicely into where the my real estate journey kind of began. So, like I said, I had some success in my first couple years in a career sales gig, and I won a pretty large sales contest, which yielded me a good chunk of capital. And I was really excited. I had all this money, and I'm still in my 20s. I'm not like super familiar with what to do. All I was doing was just working hard, normal investment, normal 401k stuff. But I just knew how to work hard and compete, and it turned into money, right? That's what I was doing in my 20s, basically. And then I remember getting that big chunk of cash. And my dad's always been a pretty big influence financially for me, and has had a lot of success in his career. He actually VP of sales, heavy sales in his 4 year career. So I watched all that. He also was into real estate, some investment properties and buying homes. And I remember the first when I got that money is buy a home, buy property, buy property. Now, this is 2013, 2012, actually, and I think it took me a few months to the end of 2012, give or take. And I remember he was just like, buy property now. And I'm just like, well, what do you think? Just buy something. Don't analyze this. Just buy something. Well, that's something that I bought in 2013. I mean, I think I got it for 130-ish in 2013. It's now worth close to 400, what, 380. So that's just one example, right? Where I think that more or less is kind of where I first bought. That's my first property that I bought. Still own it today, still cash flow, and so that's how I got into real estate.
Well, would you mind, or do you feel like telling us the number that you got?
On what?
What
The
you
what?
got for that big chunk of cash for your house?
Yeah, wait, oh, to buy it?
No, how
Or
much money you got? You said you won?
I did, I won a fit yeah, I actually won the contest I won was 15 grand, but then the I worked for a company that was kind of a franchise model, so there was, like, another ownership level, and they actually matched because it was such a large there was, like, 300 sales reps across the country, and it was like an 18-month sales contest or something like that, so it's pretty extensive. So, like, they
Yeah.
matched me, so I got 30K, kinda just that was,
Ooh,
like, yeah, just right out the gate. Obviously, minus
Which is
fun
a lot,
California
which is
taxes
a
and
lot.
whatnot, but
I love it.
That's kind of
I
just a
know.
lot. What?
yeah.
2013,
That was
but
a good time that was a
Still.
good time to be
still.
buying though, 2013, 2012. So, like, that was near the bottom for a lot of properties. If you know
Well,
that
then
now,
tax
right?
notes go down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you would have taken out
Shoulda,
credit card
woulda,
debt and
right? Yeah.
everything, just keep piling them on.
leverage. Yeah.
What do you do currently right now, like, full-time? Are you just a full-time real estate investor, or are you still working something else and you're still just investing on the side?
Yeah, so that whole sales aspect of what I was mentioning has kind of like stacked and done really compounded over the years, and I've had a good bit of success in software sales. So that's kind of the W-2 thing, but it's like the W-2 thing, no matter how much like how exciting some of those salaries and bonuses are, it's like the problem with the W-2, right, is I'm paying Uncle Sam 50% of that a lot of times. So it's not that it's not that exciting. Cool gross
No,
number,
no.
not a cool net number, right?
No.
That
And you
hurts when you
Yeah,
look at that pay
And
scale.
pretty
so,
limited.
what's your
Really
portfolio looking like right now? Because you're actually the second person now that I've talked to that was quite successful in software sales too. And this individual wanted to go like to all the way to his retirement because out of like nostalgia, but he actually retired early because he has a lot of real estate in Fresno. And so I don't know if that's something that you're considering, but yeah, what does your portfolio look like?
Yeah, it's not as exciting as I'd wanted it to be. Like I said, I've got kind of a diversified investment strategy of over everything. I have my current house that I live in that I own and I have one investment property that cash flows pretty heavily. And that's not because of lack of trying. I've done I think the last like couple of years I've gotten more into looking at like multifamily and I've swung at a few things and that just hasn't worked out. And then I was pretty far into another deal that would have been a ridiculous flip because I think it was one of my most learned a lot about
Yeah.
real estate throughout that process and trying and basically doing all of it on my own with no agents, with just using friends and investor friends and just try and Googling and all sorts of stuff. But it also caused a lot of heartache too.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of turns people away from buying real estate. So to summarize so far, you have a very successful career, but you're also able to invest on the side here with real estate. And it sounds like you said diversified. So I'm assuming you're still maxing like 401ks and possibly have like individual tax stock accounts and stuff. So how does that look like for you right now? Do you think that's like something that keeps you happy, or do you actually feel like you have a pool to still move away from your 9 to 5 and kind of do those other things as a more of a full-time thing?
Well, yeah, yes, and the real estate aspect I completely enjoy. I've got a large chunk of cash sitting on the sideline right now that has been attempting to be deployed for a bit of time, right?
Define that perfect deal.
I'm actually more open to I'm not gonna find the deal that I that deal that maybe it happens again. It was a fire property that like I'd love to talk about it.
Oh, is
Just
that the one that you were telling me that exploded or something like that?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We definitely want you to tell the story.
Cool, cool. So essentially what happened at I mean, 2022 was last year, and basically end of 2021, early 2022, friend of a friend, handyman friend there was a property that basically burned down, more or less. I mean, it wasn't fully burned down, but it was pretty toasted. It was pretty wiped out. I'd say 90% was it has to be replaced at least. And full gut, everything. And this was owned outright by an individual. They had a lot of bad memory. There was just a lot of like bad juju on their end, and they just wanted to get rid of it. So I was like, Let's go, let's roll, right? I'm like, I got cash money, let's do this. Yeah. And so we essentially negotiated a number. They weren't the most savvy of individuals, and they had some, unfortunately, time kills all deals in software. Time kills all deals in everything, right? So what ended up happening was this took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, and more people started chattering to the other people. I was locked in contract. I did all my contractual stuff with another investor, Fred. Right? I had no agent. I was just googling stuff, learning. I had bought a couple other properties, so I'm familiar with the process. And so things were going well. And yeah, this other entity, if you will, more or less convinced them that they were like not getting the best deal. And I mean, this is mid. This I'm like, do you want to go down this route because I'm ready to play ball. Like I've got attorney friends.
You were under contract.
Well, oh, middle. We were like 10 days from. We were like take 10 days from closing. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
and they just wanted to blow the whole deal up and say, "Oh, it's worth more money." I'm like, "That's don't care. That's all of it."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It took months to get into this contract of negotiating back and forth. Like we had all these fun and games prior to this, right? And so I basically had another commercial friend, family friend. I bounced some ideas off of. He introduced me to some attorneys. They helped out, guide me into different areas, and more or less, I pressed to close. I did everything I possibly could legally. And then at that time, I was like, okay, they finally got an attorney, luckily, because like if it was just these people that didn't even know what they were doing with my attorney, that still would have never worked. And so we ended up settling. I got a chunk of cash out of it. I wanted the property, right? I wanted the long term value.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
totally.
and I at least covered all my costs.
That's really interesting because actually I can only think of one other time and not to me personally, I've had that happen to someone because most of the time, once you threaten with a lawyer, you just end up closing because the last thing you want to do is pay money and then have to pay all the fees for the lawyer and then pay all the fees for the
Right?
sale.
You'd be surprised though, man.
I
This
mean,
happened to me like 4 times already.
oh,
Like, you
really?
have to, like yeah, because it's like you demand to close or
You had to
demand to
close
perform
all that.
or
Yeah.
a notice to perform and then demand to close. And actually, I've had to do that a couple times.
Yeah, but do you settle in a lawsuit or does it just blow up? Because a lot of times people just blow up and they walk away.
Attorney to attorney going back and forth. They finally got an attorney, and then it was like
Yeah.
attorney, then it was 100% attorney to attorney. And
Yeah,
luckily, my
okay.
attorney knew their attorney. Yeah, and so that was able to get done way more. Like we had it turned into a major tumultuous relationship between me personally and the seller. Cause I mean,
Right.
basically wasted so much of my time. And because of well, that's not how this works. It's in California, right? You can't just come in and,
Yeah.
oh, I found a better buyer. Well, unfortunately,
Right.
can't do that. That's actually illegal. Right.
You're protected as a
That
buyer for sure, a lot more.
that's a good,
Yeah.
we'll get into that for some of your advice, but that's another good reason for investors to make sure that if you really have a good deal, just give earnest money and get under contract, because earnest money usually convinces the seller to be like, oh, sure. Or like, even though you still under contract have that you're going to do an inspection, which some, unfortunately, so a lot of buyers or sellers don't realize that. That means if you're in your inspection period, you can still back out with your earnest money because you just have to say it in there. So,
That's what contingencies are for too. If they don't meet those
right. Yeah.
contingencies, you can back out.
So the other thing, I think that one of the biggest takeaways from this deal, and I think will help like newer investors and anyone trying to get into this, like that I took away was that like if it's too good to be true, like even in the slightest, it's probably not gonna happen. Like, both parties have to want to finish this deal to the end, otherwise it's probably not gonna happen for some way, shape, or form, and, like, I've heard this now from multiple other people that I've got another friend that has probably bought and sold 20 to 30 properties, and, like, he's just man, like, just, like, at the end of the day, it's like both parties have to be, like, in somewhat alignment,
The
otherwise.
stars have to align basically, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? To cross that finish line together and everybody be happy, like, it takes a lot, and, like, you have to juggle so much, and I can only imagine trying to do it on your own. That must have been real fun.
totally. And like some of my ego, I had some ego crushing in this too, because I was like, I did enough research. I can handle this, right? And talking to enough people, I'm like, I put this together, and then just realizing, I'm like, man, like, why did I thought that I had this such a good deal and it was under contract, and I was so savvy in negotiating and all these other things, and they're like, cool, we're just not going to do it. I'm like, oh no, like I actually have to pay attorneys a bunch of money and hey, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't work. You can't just like flag and then push them over the board. Like they could just
Yeah.
and kick rocks and sue me.
Yeah, but usually it's if you are like, "Hey, you were under contract," if you don't basically they don't wanna go into arbitration. Nobody wants to go into arbitration. That
No,
puts everybody, like, on the back burner, and nobody's getting paid, nobody's doing nothing, so, like, at the end of the day, everybody's in best interest, but unless you didn't, like, really like, someone comes in and, like, backdoors you like that, there's really nothing you can do.
yeah. It's like actually you can get more money. You should they one of the tactics they used, because and this is again, they didn't have an agent either. They didn't know what they were doing. I was a lot more like able to like be resourceful than they were on their end. And so they were just like, oh, maybe we can like like they thought that like the title company worked for them in some way, shape, or form. And so they were like sending crazy emails to the title company. They're like, we're gonna get you, we're gonna like cancel the deal out with the title company. I'm like, I hired the title company. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm the one doing this. It was crazy, man. It was but again, I think, like, it was kind of a blessing as well, because as crappy as all that was and wasted time, it's like, it really wasn't, because I got, like, a wildly extreme education out of all that, and my eyes are much more open going into deals now and looking at things, so I'm way more I don't think I'm scared, but I'm way more open to what
Right.
potential issues can happen now.
You're gonna use a real estate agent, though, for now on?
It's still a maybe, because I feel like I learned a lot on this thing.
I found something that's annoying. I think you actually hit it on the head, Derek, to say in reverse what you learned from it is you had too good of a deal. That's right. And that's what you're thinking. You're thinking this other party kind of knows way less than you. Well, I found that's really true, because whenever I've been able to get a deal over the finish line with someone, it's because they're an investor already selling to another investor and they know everything, right? So like both people know everything. So it's no one's going to be backing out of this deal because everybody knows what's happening. Even when you talk to them, you're like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with the property. They're like, oh, that's a good idea. You know what I'm saying? It's just all completely mutual. But when it comes to, so I've also had a lot of experience with even with newer agents, and they have no clue what they're doing. When I've tried to get a deal done through them, so it's for the buy and the sell. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
I've had lots of weird things. One weird thing, I don't know what internet circle is doing this, but every time you tell them something like where you're like, hey, you can have double commission, you can have all the commission buying and selling, or if you
Oh,
go,
like,
hey, can
blend
you
it?
see if the seller wants to do seller financing? I noticed that they own the property outright and stuff. They're like, that's just illegal. No, it's not. You think that you're not going to get a commission, I guess, but that's not going to happen either. You still get a commission. It's just the same as a normal loan. So, anyways, great. I couldn't agree more. It seems if
Yeah.
you're dealing with someone that doesn't know what they're doing, it's almost like you do need to have both professionals on both sides. So they need an agent representing just them to trust. And then you need one on your side, right? They can deal with that agent. Cause again, back to the agent thing, I've also noticed that they like to only work with agents since they know what they're doing. So like they don't know you. They're like, I don't really want to talk to you. You're not a real estate agent.
Especially if they've never done transact like this person specifically on this deal, I'd never done a transaction before, and, but she was the main person on the title, so
Right.
obviously that's who I would had to work with, and so she was easily able to be influenced by other parties.
It's reasonable though, right? Because now you know, okay, a person that knows very little about anything, right? Real estate related. I mean, of course they're going to do something silly like that. If they were an experienced seller, they wouldn't have even backed out because they would know that's such a hassle anyways. You know what I'm saying? So what are your thoughts on like your strategies going forward? You said you have money sitting there, which I couldn't agree more right now for how the housing market's sitting. And do you have a specific strategy in mind, or are you kind of shooting at everything? Because you said multifamily and stuff, but are you looking to flip multifamily? Which
No, totally. So I think I'm getting more open-minded to being I've been looking more out of state as well, which I was like opposed to. I guess I had some fear about around it earlier on because oh, how does that work? But I've watched multiple
yeah,
friends do this like seamlessly. And I've got a friend that's got like a team on the ground in Columbus, Ohio. I've got another friend that's doing that, another one in Arizona that's closing on a property today or tomorrow. That's going to be there, make cash flow like crazy with Airbnb. And it's like all this is all this is all being completely remote. No one ever stepping a foot on the ground, right? From leaving, no one leaving California, 100%. And so that's starting to look more attractive. Now, look, there's a lot of states that are not going to have the appreciation whatsoever, like in California, right? But they're going to have the cash flow is there in many of these, in
right.
tons of these markets.
It's a safer play. Like Conrad, he's got what, Delaware?
No,
Sorry,
South
North
Carolina, and then
Carolina.
I left every other
South
market. I
Carolina,
still have
sorry.
my rentals in Sacramento, and probably going forward, which I'm in South Carolina right now. Right, this is where my sister lives, but so that's how I know the market so well. But like I just the last 2 days, for example, this is how I like to. As a little tidbit, I like learn real estate markets. Obviously, you can do it all absentee, right? But if you're able to be in a market that makes sense and you can look around, right? So, like I'm here right now, go out and eat food at a restaurant, go to a fancy restaurant, go to maybe like a middle class restaurant, drive around. I went through North Charleston today, for example, to eat lunch, and I'm like, there is a lot of potential out here. This is insane because the populations always are moving down, right? It's from New York and from California, they're kind of like moving over to other states. So there's just there's a lot of development. Usually I'm looking for not the houses you're looking at because they could all be like shacks, right? But you're looking for fast food being built and like shopping centers and like maybe new home communities. Cause I mean that people with more money are going to move into the community. So it's just going to raise the prices up. But I think it's just because as I've gotten older and now that I'm basically fully retired, I think I'd rather just buy for cash flow too. And so I'm not trying to take on like an alligator in a property losing money just to appreciate. And I still don't know if I'll just exit the Sacramento market completely, honestly, because it's still a really good market though. So it's better than the Bay Area and LA by tenfold. But
Oh yeah.
it's do I
Oh my
want to
god.
I can tell you this remote people that deal with remote real estate in California from another state, it's a lot harder because California's tenants can do whatever they want. Who cares about what's going on?
Sure. The
Yes.
rules are very
So, like,
different here.
that's something to
100%.
keep in mind too, but I don't think anybody who's looking to really invest in California unless you were a private equity fund or something, because for them, it makes sense. You have $1 billion, you buy $1 billion worth of real estate. It's going to appreciate 10 years from now when they exit their fund, basically, because that's usually how those real estate funds kind of work. Then they've made whatever it is, 20% appreciation, and they divvy it out.
That's for the big ballers, though. The normal people, like, are
Well, I
doing it the
think
slow play, the
I would
normal
say I
play.
think they said, and
Uh,
we'll get to this with Derek too. But I've gone. I don't know if you've been like this, Derek. I don't know, and actually, I don't even know if Kevin you've been like this. But I am one of those people that's tried everything. So I'm a big failure because that means that I failed a bunch of things. I was like, maybe I can do this. Okay, I can't do this, but I can say that with
mhm.
every time I do something like silly or like a business adventure, it's wow, real estate is really awesome because you pretty much get rich literally no matter what, as long as you keep doing it correctly for like ever until you die.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it will
it's
never go
not
and
gonna
it will
happen.
never go to zero.
And everybody can do it. It could be generation you build generational wealth from it.
But you don't see it being an investor. I think that the barrier is actually too high for an everyday person that's just a teacher, even like an educated person in
Are you talking
general,
about in
because
California or just in
you
general
could just
the
run a
the
poll right now on
country?
like
Yeah.
wherever people are congregated. I guess we'll target millennials, so like on Twitter, and they're gonna be like, "Well, I don't want to change do like clean toilets and deal with late calls. Well, that doesn't really happen. And like really sophisticated investors probably have property management companies, so they don't even know what's happening.
I've heard that
It's just
comment. Yeah, you hear a lot of that, a lot of that stuff, even from people that like are do
right.
well. They,
This isn't any
yeah,
advice from me, but Derek had hit about like taxes. It's there's not another asset that you can just besides maybe like qualified dividends. But there's not a type of thing where you can make money and then when you get to the end of the year at taxes, you give all your tax first and stuff, and then you don't owe any money. That's real estate. That's what happens.
it can be on real estate.
It's
Yeah.
another that kind of stuff is something that I've felt when I've told that to even like family members, they're like, I don't know, that sounds pretty crazy. I really don't want to know or care about real estate investing because that sounds too good to be true. Or I don't want to still go back to the I don't want to be a landlord type thing.
So the other thing too around not wanting to be a land, like I haven't managed my property ever. I am a property manager for since day one. Now there was periods throughout the last 10 years where I for whatever reason wanted to like take the reins on a couple. They're like, hey, we're gonna do this. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this. I feel like I am more qualified to handle this situation a couple times. And like the few times I've done it, well,
Oh, I love
I've wasted more time. I should have just spent money. I just spent the money. My time's worth a whole lot more. My W
yep.
two time's worth a whole lot more on than just don't worry about like it was. So I'm way more now. It's like every time I get pinged from, hey, what about this? That I'm like, I don't care. Do it. I'll pay it. Do it. I'll pay
Dude,
it. Do it.
Conrad was talking about that too, and it's not about
100%.
it's not about what,
Yeah.
it's about who. Your time, our time is a lot more valuable than, like, mowing the lawn or doing stupid
And
shit
all
like
of that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff.
It's funny because I still self manage a bunch of property, but because it's some of it's to do with, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to sell them. So I don't really need to bring on a property manager, but it's because I had found so I found a bunch of software that made it easier for me to do it. And so I'm like, okay, so now
Automation.
it's managing
Yeah.
everything. It's just sends me an email when if something's wrong with people and then the maintenance person goes there. But I think similar to Derek though, that the reason I even got stuck in that was because I was like, I'll just do it because I'm not going to pay whatever these people are saying or whatever. And for the most part, I've been mostly in agreement with Derek. It's been a waste of time. The only positive side to that is I guess if you really are planning to be like full time, you have 3 rentals, now you're full time trying to sell. Yeah, you could manage.
Well,
There's no harm in doing that. But if you have a 9 to 5 like Derek does that has a whatever his level of pay is to, it's not going to be worth your time as a busy professional. It's just you'd be better off losing money that year on the
yeah.
property because again, it's not worth your time because you have a job. So
I was about to also say, someone was saying that using them as tax shelters, W-2, don't have write-offs, that's gotta be something that people might be interested in as for just the tax reasons itself.
Super interested. Yeah, no, that's a massive part of yeah. It's gone a little bit worse over some of the policy changes, but more or less, you could definitely lower your taxable
right.
income like tremendously. Depreciate
And
on
it
the
kind of
ground.
snowballs, right? Because a lot of bigger investors, if you talk to them, the reason that they're buying more real estate is actually just for the tax write off. They'll just be like 1031 stuff because they have to. Their CPA told them to. And they're like, well, I got to go buy a fourplex because I have to save money this year. So I really don't have a choice. Which is interesting to segue, Derek. How do you see the market right now? And what do you think is coming up since you're stacking money? Because it kind of seems like there's a change.
Especially since a lot of people, a lot of investors are kind of sitting on the sideline with this market right now. Are you pivoting? Are you waiting? What's your deal?
I'm definitely not thinking that I'm waiting for something like perfect. I'm actively looking. I've got people that I exchange off market stuff like regular. Like I'm always like looking at things. Just I haven't seen anything really sexy enough in Sacramento that's worth messing with. That's why I'm becoming more open and talking more about the like open to hearing like way much more open minded than I used to be around out of California.
How do
So
you feel about the actual market in California?
long I mean, dude, long term real estate's fine. Long term real estate's good. It's always good. It's always gonna be good, right? And I'm not talking about flipping. So I guess like I should be clear there. Like more or less what I'm talking about is cash flowing and long term holds and rentals, right? That's usually what I'm talking about. I don't have a ton of success. I've never like fully flipped properties, right? I've never went down that route. I've
Yeah.
looked into it and I just never did it. So I just think long term I don't think there's ever really a in hindsight, there's been some bad windows to buy real estate, but I don't think I think if you buy now, I think in a decade from now, you're going to be
Right.
pretty happy with your purchase. My take.
What about the
'Cause
market right now? How do you feel about it right now?
in California, I mean, even overall market, I'm still, as far as cash flowing, it's kind of hard because like these rates are so ridiculous. And if you look, like but like one of my other buddies who does a ton of Airbnb, the rates don't really matter because like you're yielding so much. Like he's about to close this like 2-1 in Chandler, Arizona. That's gonna be Air DNA says it's gonna yield 100 grand in back a year, which is cool, fine. And it's an owner carry, I think it's 7 to 8% and 8% down. Cool, fantastic. That all comes to
Right.
fruition, like killing it. But
Yeah.
that's short-term rentals, right? That's obviously a much
Right.
larger than the long-term rental play, right? You're gonna make more money, and there's a little more management involved.
I mean, you can obviously even do it on the side just fine, but I do tell if I've ever had someone ask me about Airbnb and stuff, I'm actually one of those jerks that's not like bullish on it because I'm like, if there's anything that's like ever really kind of interrupting or like making the government kind of upset, like crypto actually recently and stuff, people think they won't do anything, but they're going to do something. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, but typically bad, and they're going to interfere with it. And I know in California with Airbnb, they
Eventually.
have started greatly interfere with Airbnb, like a lot. Like
A
in
lot,
fact, I know some
heavily
people
over
that
the
had
years.
14 or 15 in Tahoe, and then they had to basically sell them because you can't rent
Oh, yeah,
them out.
Tahoe's the
Yeah. So just a
Shit.
side note that I'm not like, super bullish on Airbnb. Derek said, just like
rest.
it, it's all time tested and true. It's cash flowing. It doesn't even have to be technically real estate, just businesses and stuff too. Anything that's cash flowing and it's not negative. It's not underwater in some type of debt or something. It's you after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's going to be 10x whatever it was, and you're going to be happy that you did it. Let's see, we got 20 more minutes left. So what are your thoughts on diversifying? Because you had mentioned that earlier. And so some people do just kind of do one thing, and we've had people on here, they just do like almost just one thing. But you mentioned diversification. I actually like to diversify also. So maybe just your thoughts or like what you do personally.
Yeah, yeah. You mean when from we're
All
talking
assets, yeah,
diversification, you
not
want
just
all asset allocation. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, like my breakdown I mean, if you look at my net, like just like percentage of like net worth, I would say the top goes real estate, stocks, bonds, treasury, etc., and then cash, crypto. That's kind of where
okay.
I would say that's like from stack ranked net worth wise. That's kind of where my allocation of, I mean, especially right now, man, if you like in my cash is
Yes,
sitting yielding over
the
4%.
best.
So it's like just sitting there, like obviously that's due to the rates and where things are at with the Fed. But it's like, I, yeah, it's like, I guess it's been good having that on the sideline because it's yielding good
Right.
by in the
Yeah.
safest possible area. Well,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't even want to segue into banks. We don't need to go to that
Yeah,
whole
we won't go there. We won't
but
go there.
I believe that the government will continue to bail that out anyways. So, but yeah, that's kind of my stack rank of where I invest differently. And I am still a big believer in 401k, maxing that out. Right, that's if there's anyone max it out, do everything you possibly can because we talked earlier about not having any tax deductions on your W
Yeah.
2. That's one of the very small ones that you actually can leverage if you have the ability. If you have the ability to do that, and again, like I'm speaking from a single guy. I don't even I don't have a family, right? Like a
Right.
lot of my opinions are based on like single guy.
How did you get started? What was the very first thing? You said the 401k, or would you suggest like someone just coming in and like their listeners starting out, like what a single guy or younger guy, maybe just trying to figure out what to start with first?
The number one thing I would do, and something I would tell my younger self, would be to get educated in every way, shape, or form you can. Learn and get hungry and go after it. I mean, and take go back whatever 15 years, like not even I mean, tons of the resources that are available today were didn't even exist when we were really younger. So today it's like you have there's no excuse, zero excuses for not educating yourself. There has never been a better time to self educate on every possible investment. Like you go back 15, 20 years, like there were so many gatekeepers, if you will, right, on so many different parts of investing and so much manipulation. I mean, being able to get information today, like it's just so open. So there's so many open sources to find all this and do all these things. So many ways to do it on your own. That's what I would say is just get educated in all of it and figure out which direction because there isn't one right way, right? I've got people that like say 401ks are dumb, right? You need to turn all that into real estate, 100% real estate, real estate, real estate, right? I'm like, cool. Like I like kind of agree, but not always, not 100%. But it's yeah, you need to educate yourself at I think every individual and like what's your time, your horizons and risk and all that kind of stuff matters. I mean, if you're like the question you asked, Kevin, around if you're early, man, swing for the goddamn fences.
Right?
Who cares? Who can like,
Yeah.
cool. You fail completely when you're in your mid 20s.
Right.
Oh well. Start I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I would have swung I've swung hard in some areas, but if knowing what I know today would share with my younger self, it's like you can fail many times and get back up. Yeah. And then one more thing to touch on that I I wish I would have paid. I wish I would have listened to my parents more on when I was being explained like compound interest, man, compound effect of money, compound. It's like what a dollar does, putting it away, putting an investment into a yielding investment in your early 20s, like what it turns into in your like 50s. It's just like mind boggling. There is this book called The Compound Effect that's like super simple, really easy read, but just explains all these like small tasks that yield big results, what happens with money in over time and like all these things. And it's
Love
man,
that book. Love
yeah,
that book.
it's
That's
super
a
easy
great
read.
thought.
It's crazy to yeah.
I have two things to touch on with that that I
Awesome.
think will kind of go with that, and also will might even help in the book Psychology of Money. You'll see that the author is very similar to what Derek said too about 401k stuff. He's very just like you just need to invest dollar cost average over time forever. But he points out that so where we're sitting at today, that after the age of 50, Warren Buffett's now accumulated 97% of his net worth. So he was already an old man. He's basically retired at that point. And what that's really showing isn't that he's not good at what he does. It's showing that the compound effect starts to get extreme on the very ends. So, as Derek was saying, if you're
Correct.
18 and you're investing small amounts of money, you'll be surprised how much that is when you're 80, right? If you just compound all the way through, you never even took a retirement, it just keeps going. Oh, and a lot of people will be all kind of like doing Warren Buffett quotes on the internet or like on Facebook or whatever they're doing. And they're kind of missing the point that he's been good at something for literally 80 years. He started when he was 12 years old, or I guess it's almost 90 years now because he's almost 100.
99,
so,
Buffett's 92.
so
Yeah.
that's
Damn.
yeah.
And they still run a business, by the way.
So we're getting towards the end here. What can you go over? You already went over some mistakes. If there's anything that we missed that you think is like super important, that's like just pure wisdom, whatever it's about, and then kind of your long-term goals to leave with.
Yeah, I guess, well, there's a couple of things that I mean that seem, I don't know, maybe a lot of people know about. There's two areas or two things I want to touch on before. Number one, try to live below your means. I think that's one thing where I've watched a lot of people that they like the big shiny things. They like that they, I guess, all the things that don't yield, right? They like all,
You said below your means, not within your means, right?
I think below, in my
Yeah,
opinion, below,
absolutely. I
not
agree.
within my means, below my means. Like it's a big reason. It's a big reason why I've been able to do what I've been able to do and live how I'm able to live. I mean, again, like I do all right in my career, right? So it's like that does help. But trust, I could have other shinier things that I don't choose to have because because I want things
Right.
to turn into other things down the line. I don't need a $90,000 Rivian. Could I try to buy those things and get the loans on them and do all these things and have high monthly payments on a bunch of things and like sure, right? I could do a lot of that stuff. And I think that's something that like I'm not judging anyone that does these things, right? It's like to each their own, whatever. I like really look at stuff. Do you need any of those things? I mean, what do you need? What do you like? I don't know. Like that's something to really think about. Does it like what does it do for your life? What does it do for like your goals and future aspects of financially? Right. Because making those decisions today, spending a lot of that cash, it turns like negative because those are all negative. Those are like pulling money out of your pocket. Right. So
Yeah.
look, all the that could you could look back on that and be like, man, I like could have had another property. I could have had I could have had this. I could have had there's like a lot of things that you could have. So I guess living below your means. And then another thing that I like that's really I put literally everything I possibly can on credit cards.
Me too.
Everything. Put everything on it. There's not
Yeah.
right. I mean everything, right? And so pay and then pay it off at the pay it
Pay it off though.
pay it
You
off.
gotta pay it off. Yeah.
Auto pay, have enough money in your bank in your account that's withdrawing from, auto pay everything, but leverage everything. And I travel a lot. I love to travel. It's a big part of my life. Right. So it's like I'm flights, point with points, cover a lot of
Right.
those like those extracurricular with points, right? It's don't and that's just cash that like I'm gonna spend anyway. So why not get paid for spending it with
That's
somebody else through somebody else? That's just my and then have the people that don't make their payments on time cover all my points. That's essentially how that's their business model, right?
That's a
that's
good way
awesome.
to put it.
Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
that's the most logical and like financial smart move is cash back. I use a back credit card. So, and then Is there any long-term goals that you see for yourself that people they're just interested in just you? Like, what are you thinking that you're going to be like investing in real estate till you're 90, or do you think that actually at a certain point in your life you're just going to kind of cruise and just enjoy your rest of your life traveling?
No,
Okay.
I don't see myself ever cruising. I'm too ambitious in my opinion, and I actually did a little self sabbatical back in when I was like 8 years now, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna travel for I would do all this stuff." I left a good career, and I was like, "I'm gonna do these cool things." And I was literally I bought a one-way ticket to Indonesia, and I was, like, literally bored in 2 weeks. 'Cause I like working. I like doing these things, right? It's like the I know it's not ideally like, "Oh, hang out on a beach, live the life." It's like living a life, I like work. I like doing these things. I like learning. I like working, right? I like selling, I like
100%.
interacting. And so I would basically started cold calling like Western business owners in Asia, right? And seeing how they made money, how they were successful. And I was like contemplating open a business at various
Cool.
degrees. And so to the long story short, yeah, I think long term, I'm not going to ever be the guy that's golfing at a country club. I'm always going to be probably buying properties, finding different ways to make money and help people and things of that nature. I don't ever see myself slowing just because that's just not my personality type. Like I
That's not.
at
Yeah.
all. I mean, Kevin's
It's
a
not in me and
yeah,
Conrad's either.
I
yeah.
can relate, but I do think that it's perfectly fine. The people who get to 100 million or whatever, and then they want to golf for the rest of their life. That's perfectly acceptable.
No, no, yeah, you're talking yeah, for sure. Like we all have our number, right? Like I know the number that'll yield me to not have to worry about anything. Like kind of the rescue number, right? No, I can do whatever I want.
You would think people would have everyone would have that number.
Yeah, I
Not
definitely have
everybody
that.
does.
I have that.
That's great, yeah. Bro, we really appreciate you coming on, man. Honestly, provide a lot of value today. It's been a lot of fun. It's really good to see you. I love seeing how people that I grew up with doing really well, and you're killing it, bro. I love it. And you seem happy, so it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Hopefully I shed some light. I mean, I think a lot of the learnings, they're like, I mean, I'm just a more or less a regular guy, right? That did a lot of these things. I wasn't like my parents didn't give me tons of money, right? It's like that,
Right.
like because there's a lot of I know a lot of people like that, whatever, great for them. But if I bought all these properties, oh yeah, but like someone just gave you a bunch of cash. That's not really
And that's exactly why we wanted you on the show, is because you're normal, just like us, just like the
yeah,
people that are listening. It is possible. Like
yeah,
you don't have to get inherited a ton of money. It's
yeah.
work hard. And oh, by the way, Darren Hardy is the author of the
Aaron
compound
Hardy.
effect.
Yeah.
Well, that would have killed
Anyway,
me. I would
sorry.
have been mad all night if I didn't know.
I know I googled it, so I had to find out for sure.
Yeah, the simple that yeah, that book is it's like there's so many simple but they're like the what they can yield if you actually internalize those concepts are pretty
Yeah.
what's another really let me pull this yeah, I read lots of there's tons of investing books that I read, but what was that Kiyosaki book that was I thought was really
Oh
worthwhile?
yeah,
Like How the Rich Get Richer, I think was what it's that was
Oh, I
yeah.
haven't read that one yet.
it's
I'll
Yeah,
have
good.
to read that one.
Well,
All right,
it's been
cool.
awesome.
Appreciate it. Talk soon.